So this video is about the mysteries of four-wheel drive recovery equipment ratings and what you can do to keep yourself safe. So I recently released a video on how to use a tow bar for recovery, and one of the questions that people came out was saying, hang on, your tow bars drop down a bit, very similar to the drop pitch which I said not to use, and that is correct. The tow bar is dropped down a bit from the chassis rails, and that is definitely not ideal. But there's a world of difference between this drop pitch and this tow bar, one of which is that there's only one of this tow bar. I've got two chassis rails here, and there's much more, let's say, gusseting and strength and area of weld in the tow bar than there is on this drop hitch. And also the drop hitch tends to be prone to damage, or is banging on the ground, etc. The tow bar less so. So yeah, it's not ideal. That's why I said you need an element of judgment call for this. And experience has shown that tow bars like this are okay for recovery when used correctly, because here's the thing, even if equipment is rated, if it's abused, used wrongly and damaged, it can still break and kill you. Now, it's really difficult to choose the correctly rated four-wheel drive recovery gear because, unfortunately, the recovery gear four-wheel drive industry is a complete hot mess of competing standards, and they show no inclination of doing anything about it to make the life of the consumer who just wants to use the correct rated gear any easier. Now, all of the gear you see here is mine. I've used it out in the field, and it's all good quality gear which I have used, otherwise it wouldn't be out in my driveway. But the problem is the labelling on it is inconsistent, which leads to at best confusion and at worst danger for the consumer, and that is the problem, not the quality of the gear. And also, any individual labelling is not wrong, they're all correctly labelled, but again, it's the inconsistency of the labelling that is the problem. So this is what I mean. Let's say that we've got this 8,000 kilogram snatch strap and you want to connect it to your car, and you look at this shackle and you think, oh, well, that's only 2 tons. So obviously we've got kilograms and tons here, but yeah, okay, let's move on from that. You're thinking that's not strong enough. Well, actually it is, because this is a working load limit and it's a grade S-rated shackle, which means that we can multiply that by 6. It's actually 12 tons. That's what it's going to break at. And this is actually a braking strength, so it will probably break at maybe 8,001 kilograms. It's, in other words, we can't rely on it beyond that 8,000 figure. So that's actually going to be strong enough to use with that. And then we come on to other markings as well. So this snatch block has 9,000. Now, I do remember that's 9,000 kilograms. I don't remember if that's the working load limit or the braking strength, because it's not actually marked. What is marked is this one. So that's 30,000 pounds. So we're switching units again. This is from the US, so fair enough. But we do use metric elsewhere in the world. And this one, 80 kilonewtons. How many people know what a kilonewton is, or how to convert that into pounds or kilograms? Again, consistency is important. None of these standards are really wrong, but they're inconsistent, and that makes it a problem when you're trying to match like for like. And then the Fact 55 over here, working load limit 22,000 pounds, 97.9 kilonewtons again. And the Saber's actually got a working load limit in kilograms and in pounds, but again, you don't know the maximum braking strength of something with a working load limit. This soft shackle doesn't have any rating at all. This one does, and it's a braking strain. Again, we're using a different term here. So we've got maximum braking strength. Now we've got braking strain. See what I mean about lack of standardization? 9,000 kilograms. Now, whenever you see maximum braking strength or anything which isn't rated to a standard, you have to ask yourself how you actually came up, or how the manufacturer came up with that number. So, for example, let's say that this soft shackle has a maximum braking strength of 8,000 kilograms. How did they arrive at that number? Did they break 1 unit out of 10,000 they produced, or did they break 1,000 unit? What were the results? Was 8,000 out of, let's say, 100 that they broke, was the one which was weakest 8,001 kilograms, or was it 7,999? They averaged it out. In other words, you don't know the method that they use to come up with the braking strength, unless it's to a specific standard like AS 2741 or something like that. But no such standards exist for four-wheel drive recovery gear, all we do is repurpose some lifting standards. So trying to find out what is connected to what and the relative strengths of each bit of kit is near impossible. Another example, this winch extension rope has absolutely no markings on it whatsoever, and even if it did, it would probably be sold by the theoretical maximum breaking strength of the rope, which wouldn't take into account the effect of any splices or bend radius or anything else like that. Whereas this one from Yankum actually does have a marking on it to give a maximum breaking strength. So again, that's good. But again, with any form of maximum breaking strength, how on earth did you come to that factor? When you see a working load limit of, let's say, in this case, 5,000, what's its actual breaking strength? What can it really go to? Now, the breaking strength of this is on George 4x4's website, but it's not marked here. So, you know, 5,000 is going to be enough for the average recovery. But if you're looking at this going, well, hang on, I can only pull 5,000 with this, and this is 8,000, surely that's a bit of a mismatch. This might snap first. Well, it's not, because the breaking strength of this is more like 20 tons plus, and this is 8,000. So you can see how it all gets really, really complicated, and just how much of a problem it is to match all this stuff. And I really wish the industry would just standardize on some form of labeling system so people know what's what, and also are able to sort of match their stuff effectively from place to place. So given all of this complexity and hot mess, what do you do? Well, there's 7 tips I've got for you. The first one is, in any recovery situation, minimize your recovery loads as best as you can. Typically that's digging out, using traction ramps, etc. The second thing is, when you've done that, estimate the recovery loads. I've got a video explainer as to how to do that, which gives you a rough idea as to sort of the load you're going to be putting on a vehicle. Then once you start your recovery, always go slow, right? So just start to do a small tow out, don't blast away and do a big snatch. Start to load up the winch, and anytime you're winching or recovering a car, if you're putting load on and the car isn't beginning to move, you've got a problem. You need to fix that. That's really, really important. So monitor your recovery, because the recovery can change significantly from one, sort of there to 10 centimetres further on. Diff could hang up on a rock or whatever the case may be. You've got to monitor it constantly. Then use gear that's strong enough. You're going to have to fight your way through the mess of ratings over here and figure out that the gear is strong enough. And then check for damage and corruption. In my previous video, I showed examples where hitches and so forth had snapped off. And some people have said, is the tow hitch strong enough? Well, yeah, you know what? Sometimes, if it was brand new in perfect condition, that ball may well be strong enough to recover in some cases, but often it isn't. And you saw in the examples I gave that there was evidence of corrosion, poor welds, etc. So you've got to make sure that your gear isn't damaged. If it is, replace it, and look for just natural wear and tear and corrosion, because that weakens it down from its MBS and its working load. And then finally, rely on best practice. People have given up their lives to say, don't recover off a tow ball, right? So let's not waste that. Let's go, yeah, you know what, we won't recover off a tow ball. And yeah, tow bars are not rated for recovery, that's true, but enough recoveries have been done with them. And when I say recoveries, sensible recoveries, not slamming the car into second low range and taking off at 7,000 RPM. I'm talking slow, gentle, measured recoveries, checking, right? We know that will work. And then the final bit of advice is always assume things go wrong. So assume that something's going to break, assume that something's going to fly through the air, and move well out of the way. And when I say that, I don't mean this rule of 1.5 times the snatch distance. That's rubbish. Because if you're standing in the line of fire, so for example, in that direction, then you might well get hit by something. You've got to stand 90 degrees away perpendicular. That's where you're going to be safe. So hopefully this video clears up a few questions and gives you an idea how to choose some of your four-wheel drive recovery gear. I'm sorry that it's not as organised with the labelling as it should be. Maybe you can sign my petition, and maybe the industry will someday do something about standardising their labelling. So I'm going to close with the hierarchy of recovery, which was invented by the team at Get About Training, but I've got my own spin on it here. Now, it starts by saying that the safest way to recover a vehicle is something like digging, track building, tyre pressures, because you're not actually doing anything other than trying to drive the vehicle out. After that, it's towing out, and that is just the vehicle not doing a kinetic recovery, just pulling another vehicle out. Then winching, and winching you can obviously build up a lot of extra tension, so that's a bit less safe. And then a slow measured kinetic recovery, and then a fast kinetic recovery. Again, this is my particular spin on it. So why is it in that order? Why is a fast kinetic recovery not as safe as, let's say, towing or winching? Well, the answer is energy levels. The more energy that goes into a recovery, the less safe it's going to be, and the risk goes up. So always look for the least energy form of recovery possible. And as I said at the start, that starts with reducing your recovery load. So thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, please use the comment section.